I would like to request Amrit Kharel, a legal professional like myself. He's chairperson and managing partner of Jurist Nepal Law Associates. He holds an LLM degree in international and commercial law. He has served as assistant professor at the Faculty of Law in Tribhuvan University, and at present he is a PhD scholar. Amrit.
Thank you, Session Chair, Mr. Ratna Sansar Shrestha. Honorable former Prime Minister Chalnath Khanal, Honorable former Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Bhim Rawal, and Honorable Professors, Professor Dr. Yuvraj Sangrola sir, Professor Khagendra Prasai sir, all the distinguished participants, Dr. Gao, and all the distinguished participants from various other foreign-friendly nations, including China, Sri Lanka, and other nations, and all the distinguished participants. I am very much pleased to be here with you in this pleasant morning, and first of all, I would like to thank the organizer, Foundation for Peace, Development, and Socialism, for providing this opportunity to share some of my observations regarding the MCC Compact and its project implementation agreement. And in this presentation today, I will share my insights basically on top of the established principles and the norms of the international law. In this presentation, basically, we need not to be very much ideologically oriented, either Marxist or Leninist or any other ideology is not necessary to understand the lopsided provisions of the MCC Compact and its project implementation agreement. The established norms of which is known as the peremptory norms of the international law, and also it is often cited as jus cogens, from which no derogation is possible for any states in the world, either from the Western Bloc or any other countries having any kind of ideological backing. So these are such common minimum standards in the international law, and on the top of those international norms, we can see how this Compact, MCC Compact, has been deliberately, it has been orchestrated in this form to serve the mission of the Indo-Pacific strategy of the US. So, I would like to, without much ado, I would like to start my presentation. I would like to request you to support technically to present from there. Yes. Due to some technical error. No. I have already provided to Kharel sir. Didn't you, sir? Yeah, due to some technical error in this laptop, I am requesting the technical support, and I would like to highlight the basic thing regarding the treaty making provisions. We have to be very much concerned about the how treaty negotiation process was so much tilted towards the US side. As we all know that Nepal has been made the subject to the US municipal law. The MCC challenge, this is the Millennium Challenge Act of the 2003. Nepal has been made the subject to that very municipal law of the US. This is and another major issues which has to be highlighted is that all the basic preparatory documents, all the background documents in the international law terms, it is known as Travaux Preparatoires. This type of documents is very much important in light of the interpretation of treaty. How this treaty has been conducted, what were the background preparations, how all the negotiation and the draft papers were exchanged, and what was the ongoing intention, and what was the background intention of the MCC Compact or any other treaties. It is often, it can be understood from those preparatory documents only. And it is also the very much legitimate expectation of any perspective of the transparency as well. These documents has to be revealed and exposed before the parliamentary ratification. If it was necessary and if it was deemed to be ratified from the parliamentary House of the Representatives at that time, before the parliamentary ratification, these all documents it has to be exposed and it has to be brought in the public domain. But yet not, we could not find those negotiations papers, and in the last presentation also even Dr. Bhimrao, he has mentioned how his committee, the high level task force also, it asked for those documents with the Minister of the Foreign Affairs, and also with the Ministry of Finance, but these documents were not provided. So now I would like to So in this presentation, we will see the major flaws in these two documents, major documents, the MCC Compact and the Project Implementation Agreement. And the basic flaws I have already mentioned, that any country, it cannot be the subject to another jurisdiction of any other sovereign state. This is against the principle of the sovereign equality. And this principle, as enshrined in the UN Charter, this is not any principle of any communist orientation or any principle of any ideological orientation, but this is the basic peremptory norms of the international law which has been enshrined in the UN Charter, and it has been the common minimum principle for all of the countries from all blocks of the countries, either Western Bloc or the Eastern Bloc. So when a country has been made subject to another domestic law, this is a kind of the situation of the state intervention, a kind of imposition of the law of US to Nepal. As we can see, in several instances, the section of the Millennium Challenge Act, it has been cited in the compact document. We can see the section 609G of the MCC Act, it has been cited in the MCC Compact, and also several other sections. It has been cited in the MCC Compact. So we can say this is one of the biggest flaws. Also, we can say that there is no reciprocity of such subject being subject to the law of the other jurisdiction. If Nepal has to be the subject of the US law, then why not US has to be the subject to Nepal law? This query, this is a big question mark, and it has not been responded by this compact, because US has deliberately, it has negotiated in such a manner that all the provisions of the MCC Compact, it will supersede the provisions of Nepal's even constitution as well. So the US it has been only subject to the provisions of the MCC Compact, whereas Nepal has to be the subject of the MCC Compact and all the US policies which would be changed in the future period as well. So recently also in the last April 2025 also the MCC Millennium Challenge Act has been updated, and each year it can be changed, and when the government and the regime change in US, it may have certain changes and it may have some kind of alterations in its foreign policy, and to those alterations also Nepal has to cope up with. So this is the very much lopsided terms which we can see prima facie, in a very prima facie observation. This is one of the major flaws in this document. And similarly, the principle of the non-intervention, which has been enshrined in the Article 2 paragraph 7 of the UN Charter, it has been also breached. As we can see, the foreign entity cannot undermine the parliamentary sovereignty of any nations, but we can see during the negotiation of this MCC contact, we can see that the MCC has directed Nepal's parliament as well to initiate and to draft and to bring this Electricity Regulation Commission Act, and it was the byproduct of the MCC. And this was one of the major conditions. This was a kind of conditional grant, and the major condition was to bring this act from the parliament. And it has been also placed in the annex of the MCC compact as well. So this is a kind of intervention in the parliamentary sovereignty as well. Because what sort of law we need, and this is the question of the self-determination of the parliament as well. This is not in the international plane. One country cannot dictate another to bring certain kind of law, and if maybe that law, maybe we need not go to the contents of that law, but basically the procedure which it has been followed during this negotiation of the MCC contact, it has been a kind of major flaws, and this is against the diplomatic protocols, diplomatic norms, diplomatic law, and the international law and treaty making. So these are some of the major violations of the peremptory norms of the international law from which no states can derogate. Basically, the competitive grant scoring, when certain treaty negotiation is commenced at that time, treaty negotiations, it is started on the negotiation table. Not in such a situation in which we can see in this negotiation, Nepal was treated as an applicant country, and US itself, it declares itself as a kind of grantor, or a kind of country which provides this kind of contest. And in this contest, Nepal has to gain some scores, and US has that authority. US has used that authority. It has used that authority to judge over the parameters. Certain parameters have been set by US. From its unilateral, there are some parameters of the media freedom, or some parameters of the democratic governance, or some other kind of parameters which are subjective in nature. Who is the US to define what is democratic governance in Nepal? And how can it provide certain scores to Nepal? No any international law provides such authority to any country. Not even US or any other countries to provide certain score to another separate independent nation on the basis of certain subjective parameters. And Nepal, as an applicant state, it has gained, according to the MCC documents, if we go through these documents thoroughly, then US states that Nepal has gained. Out of the 20 parameters in the 16, Nepal has scored. So who is the US to score Nepal and rank Nepal? And this is one of the major flaws. And similarly, we can see this foreign directed lawmaking, this is another violation. And similarly, this aid is based on the conditionality grant, and all the conditions has been, terms and conditions has been imposed unilaterally by US, and Nepal has no any option. Either you away, and either you have to go through those conditions, or it will be rejected. In this way, this is the unilateral imposition. And similarly, political evaluation, we can see subjective kind of assessment. All the numbers and the ranking has been provided. And similarly, there is a kind of legal subordination, because the MCC provisions would supersede all the Nepalese constitution and other things. So, on top of these all things, we can say that US law and the incorporation of US law, this MCC funds, it cannot be used violating the US law or policy. It cannot be used for any abortion purpose or in any family planning. These things has been mentioned in the US, this MCC compact, and which is, it seems ridiculous enough. In the diplomatic negotiation and the treaty negotiation process, how can a sovereign and a self-determined country and bureaucrats, and how they can, or the politicians even who engage in this diplomatic negotiations, it is beyond expectation that Nepal as a sovereign nation, it has aware and it has agreed to such lopsided terms and conditions. And similarly, there is the very broad tax immunities. No tax should be, and the VAT and duty, everything, it would be exempted. Similarly, there are some kind of provisions for the implementation. Letters will also have the binding effect, and separate project implementation agreement will be there. And already we have such agreement signed by, again, former Finance Minister, Yuvraj Khatiwada. And now, we can see that on the part of the suspension and termination also, it is also, this provision is also one-sided. Because when it deems fit and proper to terminate or suspend by the US, then at that time it can suspend unilaterally without giving any logical reasoning. And if Nepal has to suspend or terminate this project, then at that time Nepal has to pay and refund the compensation as well. So this is also another major flaw. This is not the, we cannot term it as a kind of the treaty which has been done in a good faith on the basis of the pacta sunt servanda. This is one of the major principles which is enshrined in the Vienna Convention of Law of Treaties of 1969 in the Article 26. So there is no any neutral dispute settlement forum as well. If we go through the compact, it has been enshrined in the Article 6.4 that all the governing law will be international law. If international law would be the governing law, then why not if there is any dispute resolution forum? If any dispute occurs between US and Nepal in implementing this agreement, then there is no any kind of forum which has been enshrined in this document. So it means that ultimately US will decide, and that would be final. And this is another major flaw. And we can see that in section 6.6 and the 6.7 of this compact that it has also given reference to the MCC policies. Basically the MCC policies and the MCC websites has been referred. Everything what would be written in the websites, that would be in the MCC. MCC Corporation Act, according to MCC Corporation Act, there is one MCC Corporation, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and it has its website. In its website, everything what would be updates, that would be law for Nepal. Because that updates has also been enshrined as a reference, and Nepal has to follow. So, this is a kind of fundamental violation of the international law, because any country cannot be subject to the website updates of another country. Not even the municipal law, but the website updates has also been referred as, it has to be followed by Nepal. So, in the international law, we cannot imagine this type of lopsided treaty. And immunity and waiver of the claims, section 6.8, there is the waiver and the immunity for all contractors and consultants of the US consultants as well. These all are the contentious provisions which I have been highlighting here. And treaty supremacy over the domestic law, this is one of the major flaws in this treaty according to section 7.1. The text says that the US compact, this MCC compact, will prevail over the domestic law of Nepal. Similarly, we can see land acquisition and the clearance, it has been also dictated, and fundamentally the ILO Convention 169 provisions of the local indigenous rights of the peoples over the land and the permanent sovereignty over the natural rights, these things has been fundamentally, it has been breached and it has been damned here during this treaty negotiation, we can see. So, there are some other soft instruments as well, like the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness. When any aid is taken from any donor country, at that time the donors has to respect the ownership, alignment, harmonization, and also mutual accountability. These things has to be followed, but it has been, blatantly it has been also it has not been taken into consideration. Similarly, we can see another Accra agenda for action. Nepal also has Nepal has endorsed this Accra agenda, and this agenda also reaffirms that the country system, when taking any grants and any aid from any nations, at that time it has to be, all the systems of the local country has to be followed. But this has also been neglected during this negotiation. So, and we can see in this violation matrix, we can see there is the grave violation. Basically, in the Nepal has been turned as a kind of de facto subject of US law. Similarly, we can see there is asymmetry in the ranking and diplomatic protocol, because the ministers, both the ministers has signed either the USS, this MCC compact or project implementation agreement, but just the technical
Amrit,
yes, sir.
Your time is up. You have 1 minute.
Okay, sir. So, later on, the interpretative declaration has been brought unilaterally from the Nepal side, but in light of the international law also, it has also no meaning, because it is not the reservation according to the article 21D of the VCLT. So, in one case, in the international case of the Belilos versus Switzerland case, it has already, there is established case that the interpretative declaration will have no meaning. It would not be recognized by the international law. So, in these lights, now we can see that in various US documents, it has highlighted that Nepal is one of the part of the Indo-Pacific strategy. In these two documents, basically one which has been published in November 19, the Free and Open Indo-Pacific, it has clearly highlights in several pages. I have brought this here in all. I have put it in the inverted commas. And similarly, we can see these documents. This photo. It has been also taken from this July 19 report. And similarly, we can see after this MCC compact and the project implementation agreement, several times these US officials, they have been reiterating that Nepal has been a kind of part of the Indo-Pacific mission. And not only these officials, but the US embassy itself in its official pages also, we can see that also for the disaster preparedness, either in disaster preparedness or some kind of health and the COVID support as well. In providing the immunization and the vaccines also, US troops and from the Indo-Pacific Command, they have been coming here and they have been providing support. So we cannot say what is the major reasoning behind this. Either if we have to have a kind of health related relations, and why US Department of the Defense has to take initiation in this. So this is very much important to think over this. These photos I have taken from the Facebook page of the US Embassy. And these Indo-Pacific missions, from the Indo-Pacific missions, the officials, they have been coming, and the army commanders, they have been providing even the health-related support as well. And also they have been, these are the official photos of which has been publicized by the US Embassy itself. So, I would like to thank you all for this, for your kind attention, and any queries would be welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Amrit ji.